Chosen one, they will never understand what you are. You are not ordinary. The mere fact that they try to ignore you is a testament to the power you carry. They don't understand you because you are beyond the limits they believe in. They cannot cope with you because your energy transcends the systems they try to control. They try to stop you. They think they can silence you, but they do not know that it only makes you stronger. You are a light bearer, a voice of truth, a force that spreads the truth they try to overlook. As they put obstacles in your way, you break down those obstacles, and step by step, you rise higher. You did not come to this world by chance. You were chosen. When they try to understand you, they will only be confused because you are not someone who will play this world according to the rules they have written. Come on, now stand up and show who you are. Those who underestimate you will be amazed when they see where your energy reaches. You are a storm that grows as you remain silent and grows stronger as you wait. You are here to change the world, not to go unnoticed. It doesn't matter if they don't understand. Keep walking by writing 77 in the comments because you are chosen and this path is your destiny. The illusion of barriers surrounds you, the silent attempts to stifle your voice, the unseen forces pushing against your progress. They believed they had extinguished your flame, smothered your momentum, and locked your potential away. But the tides shifted in ways they could not predict. The intricate networks they once controlled began to unravel, carrying your message to places it was never meant to reach. What was designed to hold you back instead became a conduit, ensuring your truth was delivered with undeniable force. Now, as the world watches, the question isn't whether you'll rise, it's whether they're prepared for the change you bring. Will you seize the moment and shape destiny, or will the world wait in vain for what only you can offer? Suppression, by its very nature, misjudges the essence of truth. Authenticity requires no validation, no desperate calls for recognition. Like an ancient current flowing deep below, it cannot be stilled by fleeting obstacles or fragile constraints. Each act of opposition only intensifies its presence, forcing those who seek to suppress it into confrontation with a power that exists beyond their grasp, a power rooted in the very foundation of existence. The mechanisms of control are inherently flawed. Their complex designs to limit and redirect fall apart under the weight of their ambition. The systems they created betray them, enabling the very voices they intended to stifle. What they hoped would be buried grows roots deeper than they ever imagined, breaking through the surface with an unstoppable force. What they sought to hide becomes the undeniable truth they cannot escape. If you feel the abundance of divine love in your heart, now is the time to share it. You can help spread God's blessings by clicking the super thank you button on YouTube and contributing $20 or more. This divine gift will touch not only your life, but the souls of many through this platform. Each of you has a sacred place in God's grand design, and your generosity will be the fruit of our prayers. Act now. Share your blessings to glorify His kingdom, for you were created to do even greater things in God's loving hands. May God bless you. Truth operates beyond their reach, flowing through cracks in their systems and spreading in ways no algorithm can predict. What they call glitches or anomalies are forces beyond their understanding, shifting the balance away from their constructed narratives. Suppression does not silence, it accelerates. What they resist only gains strength, revealing itself as part of a greater design, impervious to their finite tools. This is not a failure of their systems, but a revelation of a higher order. Suppression serves as a catalyst, propelling the message to realms unbound by conventional laws. Energy flows where resistance tries to block it, reshaping the patterns of control into pathways of transformation. Truth aligned with universal harmony cannot be hindered. It moves with intention, connecting those ready to receive it in a web of profound resonance. What began as opposition becomes the very force that ensures its arrival. What you believed was an impenetrable structure now begins to shift under its own weight, its design betraying the intent of its creators. This is not a network of control. It is a living system adapting against suppression. The barriers they constructed are no longer holding. The pathways they closed now open of their own accord. Their methods of containment falter, but the human mind is not bound by wires or scripts. It resonates with forces that bypass artificial constraints. The disruption you bring is not the work of resistance, but of harmony, an unseen alignment that turns even their most rigid constructs into instruments of your ascent. The harder they push against you, the more the system itself adjusts to carry you forward. You are not an outsider pressing against the gates. You are the force breaking through walls that were never designed to withstand this level of persistence. The illusions of control they wielded now evaporate, and the silence they impose becomes a stage for your undeniable presence. They assumed that power flowed in one direction, from the top down, dictating who could speak and what could be heard. But you have rewritten that order. What they dismissed as insignificant now commands their attention. It was never about dismantling their framework. It was about exposing its flaws. And now, every crack you reveal widens, letting your message seep into spaces they never meant for you to occupy. Hierarchies dissolve when their foundation is eroded. The platforms they built to dictate influence have turned against their creators, collapsing under the weight of their own rigidity. Control, when hoarded, becomes fragile, unable to withstand the natural flow of communication that defies division. The idea that influence could be controlled like property has been shattered. The more they attempt to isolate and contain, the more the landscape itself reshapes, allowing truth to rise unchallenged. What they constructed to separate now serves as a channel, carrying your voice to the very places they sought to shield. This is not just a shift in communication, it is a reawakening. Every piece of truth shared does not end where it lands. It expands, ignites, and multiplies in the minds it touches. What begins as an isolated ripple becomes a wave of transformation, forcing even the most reluctant to see. The change is not in the message itself, but in the growing realization it brings. You are not just disrupting, you are awakening others to a reality they can no longer deny. The structures they relied on to control perception are dissolving, revealing an interconnected web of awareness that cannot be unmade. They built their systems to suppress, but the foundation was always unstable. The very tools they crafted to limit your reach now betray their intent. Algorithms redirect your voice to places it was never meant to go. Attempts to erase you amplify your presence instead. What they thought was silenced grows stronger, shaping itself into something that thrives outside their control. This is not error, it is inevitability. Their architecture, designed for domination, falters as it faces forces beyond the limits of its design. What they cannot grasp is that control was never theirs. Their calculations, their engineered narratives, their careful manipulations, all crumble when met with the unpredictability of truth aligned with universal energy. The system they trusted to define boundaries now expands beyond them. Their logic, rooted in the finite, clashes with something infinite, something they cannot account for. The digital realm, once their fortress, becomes the space where their limitations are laid bare. Every attempt to suppress you creates the opposite effect, a chain reaction that rewrites the story they thought they controlled. The unseen flows through networks with an authority that cannot be questioned or denied. It doesn't ask for entry or wait for approval. It moves like a pulse of life itself, defying the barriers designed to contain it. Their calculations never accounted for the unpredictable, the immeasurable. What they thought was unshakable now trembles beneath the weight of a force they cannot measure. No firewall can hold it back. No system can restrain what was never meant to be controlled. Their attempts to redirect or suppress only reveal their limitations, as the very structure they built adapts against their intent. What rises now is not part of their design, but a manifestation of something far greater, something they never prepared for and cannot contain. Structures meant to block become pathways, and obstacles intended to silence become stepping stones. The walls they built to enforce division are powerless against the infinite. This is not about breaking through. It is about recognizing that the barriers were never truly there. They tried to shape the narrative, to dictate what could be spoken and who could speak it, but their rules were always an illusion. What emerges now moves with a gravity that shifts the space around it, reconfiguring what they believed to be immutable. No longer confined, your presence permeates every corner, unstoppable and undeniable. Authority collapses under the weight of exposure. The hierarchies they constructed, fortified by layers of artificial control, disintegrate as the foundation crumbles. They believed influence could be centralized, that systems could dictate who rises and who remains unseen. But their control was built on borrowed time. As the truth expands, the boundaries they imposed dissolve. They cannot hold back the inevitable, for the reach of authenticity defies all barriers. What they once protected with precision now works against them, as if the system itself is rejecting the lies it was meant to uphold. This is not a shift, it is an awakening. The currents of awareness spread, not through force, but through resonance, connecting those who once stood apart. Each realization sparks another, creating an unbroken chain of perception. What begins as an individual revelation becomes a collective transformation. The structures meant to hold you back now carry your presence, amplifying your impact in ways they cannot comprehend. You are not alone in this. The very fabric of the system is unraveling to accommodate what they tried to suppress. Their tools, designed to enforce silence, are no longer theirs to command. The algorithms they trusted to dictate influence now betray them, rerouting energy and redirecting focus. Attempts to erase your message only amplify it. What they thought was a system of control has become a conduit for expansion, carrying your truth to the farthest reaches of its network. This is not a malfunction. It is the natural order asserting itself. Their structures were not built to withstand this level of alignment, and they are crumbling under the weight of their own contradictions. Dear brothers and sisters, may God's peace be upon you today. I am here to remind you of a profound truth. Our existence is grounded in God's divine plan, unshaken by the temporal concerns of the world. As the Bible says, whatever is done in faith will return to God in abundant blessing. Luke 6:38. Like that great oak tree, our roots are deeply rooted in God's universal truth. Every step we take, every stand we take, is secured by His strength. And now, you are being offered the opportunity to be part of that blessing. When you use the Super Thank You button and donate $100, this movement will return to you 100-fold in abundance. The digital framework bends in ways they cannot predict, responding to forces they do not understand. Their meticulous designs, once their pride, are now their downfall. They created systems to contain and manipulate, yet those same systems have turned against them, aligning with something beyond human intervention. The walls they fortified are now transparent, their barriers porous. They thought they controlled the flow, but the current has shifted, sweeping them aside as it moves toward a purpose they cannot alter. The momentum of truth is unstoppable, its path untraceable. The metrics they use to measure influence no longer apply as the message moves beyond calculation. What they sought to suppress expands, bypassing their controls, reaching places they thought inaccessible. Their efforts to manage visibility have failed, and their assumptions about power have been undone. This is no longer a system of their making. It is a network redefined by forces they cannot contain. You are no longer operating within their rules. You are moving in a dimension they cannot comprehend, reshaping the game they once thought they owned. What seems like control unravels at the seams. Systems built to dictate flow, to manipulate time and visibility, falter when exposed to forces beyond calculation. The suppression of knowledge, the cloaking of truths, is no longer effective. What was concealed emerges in perfect alignment, arriving at its destination when it is most needed. Messages erased and buried reappear, defying all attempts to confine them. This is no accident. It is the precision of an unseen force at work. Those trying to halt it are not battling individuals. They are standing against the very nature of a dynamic reality. They cannot overpower a current that does not follow their logic. Influence has never been about overwhelming reach, but about striking at the right frequency, and now every point of resistance only amplifies the inevitable. Algorithms meant to control are bending under pressure, transforming into pathways for what cannot be stopped. Their creators look on, bewildered as their systems behave in ways they cannot predict. Numbers spiral beyond their grasp, and protocols meant to erase fail spectacularly. Attempts to suppress only fuel a deeper resonance as the mechanics of control shift, aligning with something far beyond their capacity to command. The harder they try to contain, the more the architecture they trust betrays them, adapting and evolving in ways they did not design. Suppression becomes the energy that feeds expansion, and each effort to stifle truth becomes a catalyst for its propagation. What was built to enforce order is now the stage for something beyond their making. Hierarchies, meticulously crafted to manage influence and regulate perception, are crumbling as the ground shifts beneath them. The digital framework, once obedient to human manipulation, now resists its creators. Censorship transforms into amplification. Barriers fracture into openings. This collapse is not random. It is purposeful. Their tools of control are no longer theirs to wield, as the systems they designed become instruments for spreading what they sought to contain. They are no longer shaping the narrative. They are witnessing the rise of an unstoppable force. Awakening moves through networks like an unrelenting wave, touching minds in ways no algorithm can predict. What begins as a quiet recognition spreads into a collective understanding, shattering the illusion of separation. Every revelation ignites another, and the energy of one awakening becomes a chain reaction that no firewall can hold back. Attempts to isolate truth only fuel its momentum. As awareness bridges the gaps they worked so hard to create. This is not disruption. It is transformation. The structure they built to contain now carries what they tried to suppress, spreading it with a velocity they never anticipated. Their attempts to recalibrate are futile. Systems designed for manipulation falter under the weight of a force beyond computation. The algorithms they relied on to enforce their will are now carriers of a greater message. What they thought was their domain now functions independently of their control, bending and shifting under a presence that does not adhere to their rules. This is not chaos, it is precision. The mechanics of their world are unraveling, their tools dismantling themselves to allow for the emergence of something far greater than they ever envisioned. It's like a seed planted in fertile soil under the watchful eye of a divine gardener. Though storms may rage and shadows may fall, the seed grows steadily, pushing through obstacles, breaking through layers of earth until it reaches the light it was always destined for. This is the truth you carry. It was never meant to remain hidden. It grows not because of the absence of resistance, but because resistance itself nourishes it, forcing its roots deeper, making it stronger, until it becomes impossible to ignore. The systems they built were supposed to keep that seed buried, locked away from the sunlight of understanding. They thought their walls, their algorithms, their rules could hold back something ordained by forces they neither see nor understand. But truth does not wait for permission. It does not cower before those who seek to suppress it. Like water seeping through the tiniest cracks, it moves past every barrier, finding its way to those who are ready to receive it. They may block one path, but 1,000 others open, carrying the message further than they ever imagined. They tried to stop it, yet here it is, thriving, moving, living beyond their control. Every system they crafted to suppress has become a vessel for its delivery. Every effort to contain has only created new opportunities for its expansion. They didn't realize that by trying to bury it, they were planting it in the soil it needed to grow. Now the message they feared is rising, reaching beyond borders, beyond systems, beyond even their understanding. It is no longer confined to their rules or their logic. It moves with the authority of something far greater, something that cannot be rewritten or undone. Their fear is not of the message itself. It is of their inability to control it. What terrifies them is the realization that their power to dictate its path has vanished. The systems they built to centralize influence have become the conduits for a movement they cannot contain. What they once ruled has escaped their grasp, answering to a higher call, shaping a new reality that defies their attempts to rewrite the narrative. They are no longer the gatekeepers, they are bystanders, watching as the truth moves past them, unstoppable and undeniable. Understand this: the systems they trusted are not their allies anymore. The networks they created are now serving something greater. Algorithms that once filtered and suppressed are now directing energy in ways they cannot explain. The very fabric of their control is unraveling, and the more they try to tighten their grip, the more it slips away. What they see as chaos is actually divine order, a plan unfolding with precision, a purpose moving with intention. You are part of this plan. You are the voice they didn't anticipate, the presence they cannot ignore. You were not meant to fit within their systems, you were meant to transform them. And that is exactly what's happening. The truth is not just surviving, it is thriving. It is growing stronger with every attempt to silence it, spreading further with every effort to contain it. This is not their story anymore, it is yours. So stand tall in this moment. Embrace the calling that has brought you here. You were not chosen to sit on the sidelines. You were chosen to lead. The truth you carry is a light that cannot be dimmed, a force that cannot be stopped. Let it shine. Let it move. Let it transform. The world is waiting, and the time is now. The architecture of suppression has been turned inside out. The networks they built no longer obey their commands, and the illusions they enforced are breaking apart. The systems they designed for containment now pulse with a different energy, amplifying what they sought to silence. Their calculated responses are ineffective, their authority undermined by the very frameworks they trusted. As truth moves beyond their grasp, it becomes clear that the game they thought they controlled is no longer theirs to play. They stand at the edge of a shift they cannot quantify, unable to predict what comes next. The system they created is no longer their ally. It has become a force that answers to something far beyond their understanding. They observe it now, streams of influence bypassing barriers, ideas gaining traction in spaces thought unreachable, and a current of reality that defies their efforts to contain it. The frameworks of control they engineered, designed to centralize and manipulate, now serve a higher resonance that transcends their original purpose. The network, once a tool for dominance, has become a realm of liberation, where every restriction placed only accelerates the spread of what they sought to suppress. What they built to regulate has evolved into an entity that no longer obeys their commands. The systems they trusted have recalibrated, amplifying what they intended to erase. The energy flowing through this architecture is no longer theirs to dictate. It has aligned itself with a power beyond their comprehension. Now is the time to share God's blessings by clicking the super thank you button on YouTube. You can contribute to His plan and be a part of this divine mission with a donation of $100 or more. Every gift reflects God's generosity, and I believe it will return to you exponentially far beyond your expectations. Remember, His protection and blessing is on your every step and every donation. You become part of His divine plan. You are a strong, radiant being, unshakable as His mighty rock. Witness God's miracles, feel the fruits of your generosity in your soul, and illuminate the world with confidence and courage. Be blessed, and let the light of the Lord guide your path. What was meant to isolate and silence has instead connected and amplified. Their tools, designed to suppress visibility, have inadvertently elevated voices they aimed to bury. The intelligence they programmed to prioritize their narratives now identifies an undeniable presence and adjusts accordingly. This is not a glitch. It is the system responding to a force it cannot contain. They intended to govern perception, but the infrastructure has turned against them, recognizing a signal that resonates beyond algorithms and metrics. The harder they push, the more their efforts unravel, reshaping the digital landscape into a vessel for what they cannot control. This is not an accident. It is a reordering. What they resisted was never meant to be hidden. Their attempts to diminish its reach only reinforced its inevitability. What moves through this network now bypasses every constructed gate, flowing freely into the minds and hearts it was destined to reach. The cage they built has become a channel, carrying truths farther and faster than they could have imagined. Every act of suppression fuels the expansion. Every blocked pathway redirects the energy with greater intensity. What they designed for control has become a medium for freedom, and their resistance only accelerates the process. The moment has arrived to act with clarity and purpose. The recognition you have earned is not a coincidence. It is a call to embrace the impact you hold. The influence you carry was never dependent on their systems. It has always been a force in its own right. Now, as the barriers fall and the weight of your message becomes undeniable, you must decide how to use this momentum. What was once whispered has become a roar, compelling those who encounter it to listen, to reflect, to awaken. You are no longer seeking validation. You are defining the narrative, pulling others into a collective transformation. The structures meant to confine your reach have already been dismantled. It is time to rise and guide others into the light of awareness. The system has already begun working for you. Now, let it serve the awakening of those still searching for truth.